Hey gamers, welcome to the show. I'm Meowatic, and I have both a very fun and strong deck for you today. I originally played this deck up to rank 1, been playing some other decks, so I dropped down to a very low rank 13. But I've started picking this deck back up again, started gaining ranks, and I'm gonna see if I can take it to rank 1 again. We have, of course, the classic blue-black midrange in standard. Well, blue-black tempo, really. An incredible deck which took second at the recent Arena Championships. Um, it looks like kind of a slower deck. You have infinite value with Curiosity and Kaito, but it's a deck that really just relies on you play your creatures, you attack your opponent, you either tap with many tap spells or kill your opponent's creatures, and you keep attacking. So, without further ado, let's start talking about the deck and the card choices. So, let's start with the creature package. So we have 4 copies of Spyglass Siren and 1 copy of Mockingbird as your 1-drops. This is, of course, over other 1-drops such as Spectral Sailor or Fairy Dream Thief, both of which are reasonable. I've seen both of them played, but Spyglass Siren comes out on top. It is absolutely the strongest creature, creating a map token when it enters. Feels terrible to even point a cut down at it, and it gets bonus value when you pick it back up with Kaito. So Spyglass Siren is the best creature you can get. Mockingbird, as a one-of, is our follow-up. Why? Because it's there. A lot of times I just play it turn 1 as a 1-mana 1-1, or my opponent plays a 1-drop, I copy that. This creature exists to be a flying creature to get copied by Kaito or Curiosity, and occasionally it gets more value late game when you can copy like a Beza or a Flip Pit Drowner. In our 2-drop slot, we have Flip Pit Drowner, a new card from Duskborn, which is a flash merfolk which taps and stuns an opponent's creature when it enters. It can then shuffle itself and the opposing creature into the deck. Notably, the text on this card says shuffle Floodpit Striner and target creature. So if you activate this ability and Floodpit Striner leaves the board, say getting ninjutsu, Floodpit Striner will go to your hand and the targeted creature will still get shuffled in. So you can get a free removal spell and an extra Floodpit Striner by Ninjutsu and Kaito. This does take 5 mana, but it comes up surprisingly often. Your absolute best creature does everything you need it to do. Then you have Fairy Mastermind, kind of the black sheep of the creatures. It does nothing when it enters, and it kind of dies to everything. But it's just such an absurdly powerful card that we don't really care about that. Great in the mirror, great against domain, great against green black. Struggles a bit against red aggro, but hey, sometimes everybody's got to struggle somewhere. 4 copies of Enduring Curiosity, arguably the strongest single card in Standard, a flash enchantment creature which draws cards anytime one of your creatures deals combat damage, and when it dies, it comes back as an enchantment. A flash hard to remove creature just does everything you want it to. And finally, counting him as a creature, 4 copies of the legendary Planeswalker Kaito, Bane of Nightmares. Kaito has the special ability to be a 3/4 ninja with hexproof on your turn instead of a planeswalker. Yes, Kaito is not a planeswalker on your turn, so he cannot be edicted with the planeswalker option. Past that, a Kaito is a card draw effect, a consistent emblem buff for both himself and your Mutavault-esque land, and a removal spell with the 2 stun counters. This is why we play 4. If you go turn 1 Siren, turn 2 whatever, turn 3 Kaito, more often than not, you are just going to win that game for free because he's so hard to deal with. So you've got your creature package, which are very evasive, very cheap, very feels bad to kill. You even have Faebloom Trick, the newest addition from Foundations. Some lists play 4. I'm trying 3 with 1 copy of Gix's Command, which makes 2 1/1 flying blue fairy creatures, and when you do, you tap target creature an opponent controls. Throws off their tempo, makes 2 creatures, feels great into removal. Great with Curiosity, reasonable with Kaito, and just one of the newest powerhouses you have access to. Past that, 2 spell stutters, good counterspell, especially now that we technically have 10 fairies with 4 Mastermind, 3 Fabloom Trick, and 3 Soulstone Sanctuary, which is an all creature type card. So a very reasonable counterspell, good in most matchups. When I say most, I mean all matchups. I've never cut this card. Past that, we have our removal, 3 copies of Cut Down. You could replace this with Disfigure or Stab, the 1 mana -2/-2 instant. A lot of people are starting to do that. I'm considering that, and I will be testing it in the future. But 3 copies of 1 mana removal, 5 copies of 2 mana removal, 1 Anoint, 2 Go for the Throat, and 2 Sheoldred's Edict. Edict primarily being to help win the mirror and kill other Kaitos. The mixer removal is nice because all these removal spells have some limitation. Anoint cannot kill big creatures, Go for the Throat cannot kill artifacts, and Edict does not target. So you don't want to get bogged down with, 2 or 3 Go for the Throats in hand when you're facing off a Steel Seraph, or the same thing with Anoint when you're facing off a Sheoldred, or Edict even when you're facing, a Llanowar Elves and a creature. So that's why we play a good mix of them. You could even throw in Shoot the Sheriff, although I wouldn't recommend it, with Fairy Mastermind being a rogue, and, well, no, you're a pirate. And then finally, we have 1 copy of Gix's Command, a fun little addition which is good into most matchups. It's quite bad into Domain, although I have not seen a single Domain deck for quite a few days now. It's all been red aggro or black midrange, of which Gix's Command is great into. Lands, we have the classic mana base, Darkslick, Gloomverge, Underground River. We have 3 copies of Restless Reef, not 4, and 3 copies of Soulstone Sanctuary. Soulstone Sanctuary, newest card from Foundations. It is a manland which permanently becomes a creature with the vigilance in all creature types once you activate it, allowing us to basically use this as another flash creature. We can, at the end of our opponent's turn, activate this and then have a vigilance creature which benefits from Kaito emblems and buffs our spell stutters. However, it is colorless, that's why we're only playing 3. Well, 4 is a bit much. We have 3 copies of Restless Reef, not 4, because we have 3 Soul Stones. We have 6 manlands, and we don't want to go too crazy with tap lands when we're looking to go 1, 2, 3 a lot of the time. So that's the main board. Very strong, very aggressive, although it can play later games with Kaito and Curiosity. Sideboard, we have the classic Ghost Vacuum. Love it or hate it, it's gotta be there. There's enough graveyard decks. Otters, Simic Terror, Delirium's making a comeback. Any sort of weird reanimator deck you see, you need this card. Feels bad, but we need it. Negate, still have 2 copies of it. Solid into domain decks, solid into control decks, token control decks, and it also comes in against Simic Terror, it comes in against Otter combo. That's really it. You bring it in against the decks which don't rely on creatures. As far as removal, we have 1 Anoint and 1 Blot Out for targeted removal. These cards obviously do come in against red aggro. Anoint is quite good against green-black since they have Mosswood Dread Knight. They come in if you're playing against a slasher deck, if those decks are still around, they come in. Blood Out. For those of you wondering, this card answers Enduring Curiosity. The sole reason it's here is to answer that stupid cat. It also kills Kaito. So this is your answer. I've seen people play up to 2 or 3 copies in the main even. So if you love this card, go wild. Followed up, we have 2 copies of Tashana's Tidebinder. Excellent card. I used to mainboard 3 copies of this prior to Fabloom Trick. Excellent card. Doesn't really have bad matchups. It's just a bit outclassed. So I actually bring it in against Mono Red. I bring it in against Domain. Token Control. I bring it in against Annex decks. Decks where they have triggers that scare you to death that you can't counter with Spell Stutter. So, lovely card. If I had 20 sideboard slots, I'd have more of these guys, but too bad. Now we have some weird ones. 1 Sheldred, 3 Preacher of the Schism. So, you may notice there's exactly 4 of these, and we have exactly 4 Kaitos. Against haste matchups or a flash decks where you're worried about your Kaito dying, you take all 4 of these guys out, put all 4 of those guys in, and go back to old school blue-black. That's really it. When Kaito comes out, these guys go in. Finally, we have our sweepers. 2 copies of Glistening Deluge and a second copy of Gix's Command. There has been a recent influx of Convoked players, which is actually our worst matchup. It is the only matchup where I have a negative win rate, so I am afraid. I am afraid, and I have answers. These are for Convoke. Gix's Command comes in against all red aggro. It comes in against demons. Believe it or not, you sideboard versus demons fairly similarly to how you sideboard versus red aggro, except you don't cut Kaito. And with that said, that's the deck. Thanks for watching this part, and alright, new matchup, new opponent. This time we're on the draw. Compass 999. Rocking the Gix's Command sleeves with Liliana avatar. To me, that reads as a green-black player, but it could be blue-black. I was wrong. It's red aggro. I suppose if you make a guess that your opponent's playing red aggro, you'd be right about 60% of the time. Not the draw we want for this. Killing that on my turn. Most lists don't mainboard copies of Snakeskin Veil, but it's not impossible for them to do that. Audacity, wow. So this is a weird list they're on. Much weaker to tap effects. Much weaker to tap effects with Audacity. But probably stronger if I'm just going to be killing their stuff. Another challenger. That's tough. If they don't draw this card, it's very difficult to actually lose for the blue-black deck, but a 2-mana 2/2 haste prowess draw an extra card every turn is a little bit strong. A little bit strong. Can't deny that one. Another land, not what you want to see. Alright, let's get Curiosity down. So, with the way their deck looks, so they have nothing to do, so it's not removal. I'll have lands for the rest of the game. Yeah, they have a combat trick. Let's see if they have 2. Let's see if they have 2. Turn inside out. I've not seen that one in a minute. Second turn inside out. Wow, so they're old school. Probably Leyline. No, probably not Leyline with Audacity. Going down to 4. A dead to Burst Lightning. Let's hope they don't have it. Oh, there's a Burst Lightning in the grave. It's fairly difficult to win if they just block. I gotta find removal. That actually works. Taps down the Trampling Swiftspear. Oh, Slick Brick. Alright, we tap down the Swiftspear. Let's see if they swing out. I think this is a tough decision, because I double up and then I single block and hopefully I get a counterspell off. So this gives them a detective. Do I care about a detective? Or do I think I do care about a detective. So we have the Restless Reef, although it's not the best thing to do. That is the best thing to do. Well, Welcome to the world of dodging burst lightning off the top. See if we can win the game before we die to burst lightning. Oh, they have nothing. So let's take 0 damage. I doubt they play Lightning Strike, but there's no reason to give them the opportunity. Nothing. A fairy. So in the Oops All Haste creatures deck, I'll sit on Kaito, leave myself a blocker. Well, that is not a haste creature. They're killing their own creature for lethal? Well, that's too bad. We did not manage to dodge a single... draw. 10 damage, huh? 10 damage in 3 draws. That'll do it. That will do it. So against that, we want all the removal, all the life gain, and Tidebinder. We're going to cut Kaito, because he dies too easily. Mastermind, because it does nothing, and Mockingbird, because we don't have Kaito anymore. Alright, and we are back. So we're going to be on the play with a bad hand, with a keepable hand. I don't love keeping the Shelly, but I think as we have the cut down, I keep the Shelly over the second drowner. And we just play removal. We play removal, we hopefully draw lands, and we play Shelly. That's why I don't typically like to hold my lands, but it's a bad habit I have. Sure. Play Flood Pits Drowner. I think I'm the beatdown here. And if they're, the Felonious Rage Burst Lightning, a turn Inside Out Monstrous Rage, Audacity, probably Snakeskin Veil deck. But they probably really are low on creatures. Callous Sellsword too? Wow. That doesn't leave much room for creatures, does it? I'm gonna let it go through. If I take 15 damage here, I wouldn't be too surprised, but let it happen. Sure. See if the Sellsword comes out. It does not. Well, this time I block. This time I block. I think it's probably a bit telegraphed, but I don't know if they'd play around it. If they draw a third land, we obviously get a bit concerned. But they're not afraid. They fear nothing. Let's see it. If they don't have a snakeskin, I will be absolutely floored that they'd make... Wow, okay. I didn't even get to finish my sentence. They don't have a snakeskin. I think running that into a fairly obvious removal. Don't care about Swift Spear. Alright, now I start winning the game. Swift Spear is so much less threatening than the mouse because it doesn't do double damage off Callous. So even if they swing, pump spell, no, they're not even gonna try it. And we're gonna run it back for game 3. This time we're on the draw. So we really need to mulligan into a removal hand. And we are back at game 3, this time on the draw. Opponent kept a hand of 7, and we're gonna do the same. Scamp on turn 1. I'll hold the cut down. Gonna kill the Swift Spear. I don't mind leaving the Scamp alive because they actually have to commit actual cards to the Scamp as opposed to Swift Spear, which just gets buffed when spells get played. So they have to actively commit to that. And I could hopefully punish them for it. They do have Restless Ridgeline, which is absolutely bizarre for that deck. The Slick Rick. Don't love to see it. I don't care about killing a single Scamp. 2 cards. So I think I'm going to block. If they have 2 copies of Monstrous Rage or 2 copies of Turn Inside Out, basically 2 pump spells, it could be a bit headachy, but I think it's better than... I was gonna say, I think it's better than the alternative, but... Seems I have nothing. Yeah, if I had 2 pump spells and we let it through, we could take up to 16. Don't love this one. Not gonna give them the snake skin into a lot of potential damage. Just gonna hold up the Fableum trick. Although based on the way they've been playing, it looks like they're just holding up a whole bunch of lands and maybe 1 combat trick and maybe a burn spell. Monstrous Rage, as always. Getting real sick of that card, you know, Chad? Real sick of that card. No need to let that thing sit around longer than I have to. And it's time for me to finally start winning the game. 2 damage at a time, we'll get there. Let me check my graveyard. No creatures, so can't get this command to get something back. As always, go for the throat over Annoying, because Annoying prevents the death triggers. And we're feeling pretty good about this. We don't have to counter a creature, so we can wait. So I think it's tempting to play the Curiosity here, but I don't like it because of the potential downside. And again, it's one of those situations where we just have everything. We have uses for all our mana, whether they play something or not. Doesn't matter to us. And now I'm still picking up 3 cards. Hopefully, if they don't start killing my guys. And then I start winning. But there's no need to take the 2 cards, expose myself to maybe not picking up a land, which I actually would not have, and getting hit with a Slick Rick off the top, or a Twisted Fealty, or really any random card could get us. I'm gonna play out the Verge. Over Underground River for obvious reasons, I would hope. Ooh, Obliterating Bow. Because I'm interested in winning the game, I'm gonna counter that. And then, even if they play nothing, I'm gonna get the Drowner down. So this is a matchup I used to play all the time back in the day. All the time back in the day. We gotta whiff the mono red players. But yeah, so new opponent. Start. Don't know what they're on. We could maybe guess based on the Kaito avatar and Kaito sleeves that they might be on Dimir. But we're gonna look to keep any sort of reasonable hand. This is on the bottom end of reasonable, but since we're on the play, we have a good curve, we have counter spells. It's fairly reasonable for us to just beat him down. Let's see what they're on though. Dimir, not a surprise. Good job with the land. The Dimir deck doesn't often play a sorcery speed creature on turn 2. So I feel pretty good about just cracking the map. And not holding up a spell stutter. Yep, they didn't. Drowner, or what do they have? A Drowner. So in this matchup, it's particularly important to not let your opponent get a Kaito down on turn 3 when you don't have an answer. Seeing as how I have Bloom Trick, I'm totally fine just trading off one of my 1/1s for the Drowner. And again, the Dimir deck doesn't play at sorcery speed all too often, so you don't feel bad about just tapping out on their turn. If they surprise us with something, they don't. And we just continue to beat down. So, with a draw like this, no Kaito, no Curiosity, no Gix's command. Sure. Our best bet is to just attack them down. A Fairy Mastermind is one of the weirdest cards in the deck. Unlike a Drowner or a Siren, it doesn't have a good ETB. But it's just a really good card to have. So I don't feel bad trading off a Fairy to kill the Mastermind. And then from here we have 4 damage on board. They might flash in a Curiosity while I'm tapped out. They do. No big deal, we have a Drowner. So we're just going to keep attacking. We're going to Drowner and hold up a counterspell. Drowner is actually a big threat to them with a Curiosity. It's one of the few ways you can fully answer it. Interesting. So now that they've activated the Reef, I'm almost incentivized to let them attack. I activate Soulstone Sanctuary. They're giving me the hello. Let's say hi back. I'm just gonna let him hit me. This is a situation where we're the beatdown. What do they mail? Nothing relevant? They can draw cards because they're not going to have the opportunity to play them. Activate Soulstone. Hoping for an untapped land. We'll put him down to 6. We could easily have 6 damage in the air. The only concern is, multiple copies of Cut Down. Just killing our creatures. Or several copies of Flood Pit's Drowner. Though having been in this situation from, mostly the offensive side, most people play this matchup too passively. They think because that this deck is so full of removal, you can just sort of sit around, kill things, play the value game. That is new. If they tap out, they're dead. Most people play this matchup too passively. They think that you can just sort of sit around and you're eventually gonna outvalue your opponent, when in reality, most of the removal in this deck is pretty bad against this deck. You don't want to kill Flood Pit's Drowner, you don't want to kill Spyglass Siren. Fairy Mastermind's a good kill, but you can't really kill Kaito without your sack effects. And the main board, you just don't kill Curiosity. So unless you're on a draw with, 2 copies of Curiosity or a nice Kaito, you just can't play the late game. And it looks like they're realizing that right now. If you want to attack, go for it. Go Drowner. This sets me up about the same into a counterspell, but better into removal. Disfigure. So I've been seeing a lot more people switching to Disfigure. Alright. Well, land off the top kills them. Okay, go off the top also does that. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Even if we didn't pick up Kaito, the Fairy Mastermind. We've got next turn they'd be down to 2. We'd have 2 lethal attackers plus the fairies. plus a spell stutter for 5. So in this matchup, we have a lot of options. I've been testing things now and then, and really I've come to the conclusion I like the Blot Out. I like Blot Out over Annoying because, again, you're not killing anything. A cut down's still good, takes care of Mastermind, and especially on the draw, you do have to kill their cheap creatures, so you can't let a turn 3 Kaito happen. Go for the throat, sticks around, it can reduce curiosity. Some people leave in Shelly, some people bring in Preacher. We don't care about that. I found these cards to be, well, okay, Shelly's pretty good at times, but Preacher to be fairly underwhelming with how many really easy answers this deck has. I used to bring in Tashana's Tidebinder, though I've stopped doing that now that we're on several copies of Fable and Trick, and we have a saturated 3-drop slot. So I bring in Blot Out, I take out 1 Anoint with Affliction, and I just basically run the main deck back. The biggest thing in this matchup is you gotta be the better player. This hand is dicey, but we've got our best removal. We've got counter spells, which are amazing in this matchup. Kind of an unfortunate draw. And Drowner does a pretty good job of stopping turn 3 Kaito. Let's see. What do they have? Oh, Duress. So I don't even sideboard Duress these days. Some people bring it in for this matchup. I don't love it. Like, they're losing their turn 2 to take a card that typically 1-for-1s. So it's not that big a deal. They have Spectral Sailor? I saw them looking at their hand. Tragically, we do have to flip this Drowner this. We can't give him a Kaito. The biggest thing on this matchup, if you're on the draw, if you find yourself with a slower hand, you just actively need to deny the Kaito. Here, it's a pretty good spot. I think they were thinking about it. Yeah. So we can't deny the Kaito. Bad situation all around. There was argument to not attacking, but a Flood Pit's Drowner just sitting on the table doesn't do anything. So a Kaito's fairly reasonable to beat here. They don't actually get a good pickup. I don't get any value from recasting. And if they 0, you also get a card.
This is where things looks like I got.
What are they gonna do? In this matchup, I often plus instead of anything else. And they're gonna do the same thing. Why do I do this instead of waiting till their end step? Don't ask. A second Mastermind, that's a good pickup. So, we could fairly reasonably kill Kaito on this next turn. Ooh, they're in a Fountain Port version. So they're gonna have better late game with Fountain Port. But obviously, weaker actual pressure. Damage is irrelevant. Damage is not irrelevant. Sure. They're not gonna like this one. They are not going to like this one. I wonder if they activate the Fountain Port to deny the draw. Probably not. So we've dealt with Kaito just sort of by taking hits. You never want to block Kaito unless you're going to kill it. And then getting back at it. We've got our own Kaito now. Ooh, that's a perfect draw. Perfect draw. Okay, it's a good draw. Interesting. I would have assumed, obviously I don't know what they have in hand, that they were either going to make a fish to block my Drowner. So they have a removal spell. Which means to guarantee a dead Kaito, notably they have one black, so they can only play one removal spell. To kill Kaito, I probably have to activate a land. Well, that changes things. No, I just get to attack. Ooh. Okay, Drowner. Yeah, I can't let Drowner resolve. Okay. You go to Kaito, you go face. Good ninjutsu Kaito in. And because I have Risen Reef, I have to plus Kaito.
Your tech is way. Don't worry, Pom Ponchin. I need more intel.
But if they tap out to hit Kaito,
I just hate a fair fight.
they kind of just drown at this point. Get it? Drown. But no, if they hit Kaito, I just plus Kaito again. I activate the Sanctuary. I hit them for 12. And then the Siren doesn't kill Kaito. So they either need to activate the Reef again, or they need to find a removal spell, an Edict, or a Blood Out to kill Kaito. Especially if you're playing 3 to 4 copies of Soulstone, you want to be plussing Kaito most of the time. Get the plus.
Just try to
Activate this. Hit them for 12. This is what I mean by life total doesn't matter. I got ahead on board, and I've already done 12 damage one turn. 60% of their starting life total. And now they're done. I'll let them attack if they want. They don't want to. Let's get another attacker down. And deprive them of another blocker. I'm going to plus Kaito to 6 once again. That's kind of a bad draw here. A prevent gives me 2 lethal attackers on their own.
I've trained with the best.
Not going to activate the Reef unless they... Okay. Well, change of plans. I am activating the Reef. Make sure, chat, if they're tapping down one of your main lands, to get the value out of it. Mill them. We're gonna flash in the Mastermind. I'm gonna kill it. And they're going to live at 2. But they're basically dead. They're forced to chump. They could kill Kaito, but this deck doesn't deal with swarms of creatures very well. That is the biggest weakness of this deck, and why I found myself they're not even gonna wait to see their draw. So I think that was a pretty good example of how you're supposed to play this blue-black matchup, where when you have a great draw, like I had game 1, and I just get to play a lot of creatures and attack. This deck cannot deal with that. In game 2, they played a Kaito, but didn't protect it very well. So I was able to kill their Kaito and establish my own and protect it. And I just won with tempo, not even value. I didn't even need the extra card draw. Just had a really big Planeswalker, man. Well, I hope you enjoyed the games. And if you do get the chance to try this deck out for yourself, I hope you enjoy it. Couple last things about the deck before I go. Feel free to mess around with all the removal spells you're playing. Try some cut downs, try some disfigures, different edicts, different go for the throats, different anoint, maybe even a blot out or 2. You could try the Gix's command, you could try a main deck Shelly. Really, this deck is just so great to play around with. The core is so strong. Every single one of the cards we play is just an absolute powerhouse on its own that you could really put in anything. Even in the sideboard, with the exception of Ghost Vacuum to beat those graveyard decks, you could put in anything. You could put in Malicious Eclipse, you could put in more cut downs, you could do more Tidebinders. This is a great deck to play If you want to learn, if you want to get better at this game, if you want to work on improving your own deck, I would really recommend playing this. With that said, I've been your host, Meowatic. If you enjoyed the gameplay or the video, you can find me on Twitch. I stream 6 nights a week. I play standard. Or on Twitter, where you can catch my deck lists as soon as I play them. Good night, everyone.